The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. It's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Greetings, Moors, and welcome to a special Thursday edition of House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, we are pleased to present our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents Reclaim and Respect the Intuitive Mind, a Lesson in Liberation. But before he gets started, be sure to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and share with others. Now, let's receive Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey.
Body Makem. We're going to talk about the respecting of the intuitive mind and some natures of the intuitive mind. As you know, as we talked about earlier, Dr. Naila, about the supraliminal, that's lesson book number 12. And as I was going through some of my notes when I was home before I came up here, I was actually looking for some of my other notes, recognizing that some of those notes are on actually floppy disks.
It's way back.
Yes, and some of the hard copy of the manuscripts was destroyed in the fire on Lancaster Avenue years ago. And so what I did, I was aspecting some of the energies from the other lesson books. As you know, they were all actually interconnected. And so I made a few notes on the subject matter relative to lesson book number 12, which many of you who have the old newspaper, the Al-Moroccan Star, you'll see the cover of the supraliminal on the back of the newspapers. And you see old Moorish lantern, essence of sage, and that's the cover of the supraliminal. But anyway, I want to share with the intuitive mind because of many of the social political activities that are taking place now at Midgard to continue on the part of some of the hybrid Europeans to in their continued attack against Asia and Africa and the descendants of the ancient Lemurians, Moors, Hittites, Canaanites, etc., and also with many of the conflicting aspects of the culling practices of the Inquisition and the misrepresentations in government, the de facto operations on multiple levels of human existence, the constructed fictions created for stealing birthrights, and also the suppression of our people on multiple levels and the designed miseducation of our people, particularly in the West or the Maghreb, accentuated by the operatives and the founders of the General Education Board of 1902, set forth by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates, which I'm sure you're familiar with that name, Gates. and the foundation behind human destruction coming from the operatives who still operate that foundation. And so I wanted to share some aspects of the respect and reclaiming of your intuitive mind and some aspects of philosophy and knowledge about it, and why also take in consideration why many people don't talk about it. Or people who do know about it, and particularly the priesthood and people in government, why they don't talk about it. So we're sharing some aspects with.
Before you go any further, Grand Sheik, I want to just request that those of you who are on the chat right now, if you would share on your social media pages and so forth that we are on tonight, because some people did not get the memo that we're not going to be on tomorrow. So if you could share that we're on live right now, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Now, so here is, we'll share some notes that I could glean and some supportive aspects. So this would be a brief on the nature of the Moore's Order of the Round Table, lesson number 12, the superliminal. Respect the intuitive mind. In the ongoing quest by some among us working for human liberation and for self-sought ascension, reflection may serve us well, and we may find ourselves upon honest observation buried within the myriad of the twisted dynamics of pseudo-religious dogmatism. This is more often than not conjoined with social political distortions. And while these social solace dogma paradigms of vague and worshipful energy placements are satisfactory for some souls, such artifice chainings are into its sense to be neglectfully restricting and growth retarding for others. And so to assist those who are sympathetic for truth, we choose at this juncture to consider some of the elements related to the intuitive mind. For purposes of cognate-directed considerations, we share some denotative meanings and related synonyms of and for the words intuit and intuition. Intuit. Intuit is a transitive verb and in its operative sense means to know intuitively. In closer inspection of the intuitive characteristics, we share the denotative meaning of intuition. Intuition. Intuition is a noun and is etymon derived from the Moorish Latin word intuitus, and it means to express or expresses as a look at and or looking at. Intuitive or intuition relates to the ability or the capacity to comprehend or to see something immediately and to grasp and comprehend the nature of, the intent of, or meaning of a thing. And intuition relates to the mind's extrasensory perception as applied to and of things, of beings, or of situations, etc. Intuition is associated to the acts or the faculty of knowing and or sensing, absent of and without the conjoining of reasoning or the usages of rational processes. Consider the nature of the mind in comprehending, knowing or no being, and akin to the cognate, quote unquote, I am, in relationship to the divine mind of the higher self, and less burdened with the constrictions imposed by dogmatic belief systems or political suppressions as socially imposed upon humanity through the ages. And for the most part, these said constrictions were formulated by a narcissistic and selfish group of priests and de facto rulers, most commonly referenced as, quote unquote, the bishopric, as associated with Rome. Reverting back to the word intuition, also consider a sense of something not materially immediate or cognate supports, or evident or deducible, and more in the nature of impression. Those among us who have arrived at or who demonstrate a less constricted approach to and an operative approach to the respect for the intuit or the intuitive mind are often referred to as intuits. Intuition. Synonyms of intuition are divination, clairvoyance, intuitiveness, seership, sixth sense, instinct, and the like, etc. And for purposes of lesson number 12, the superliminal, we present these for your consideration. A, the conscious mind. B, the subconscious mind. C, the supraconscious mind. In consideration of the conscious mind, we relate to the capacity of, the power of, and or the faculty of knowing one's own thoughts, of one's own mental operations, and of the knowing that man, the species hominidae, is a conscious being, capable of retrieving memory or without the extraneous information, etc., as not being conscious of the fact, etc. In consideration of the subconscious mind, we relate to that aspect of mind whereas one is deemed not wholly conscious or operatively not conscious or partially conscious. In consideration of the supraconscious mind, we relate to that aspect of the mind whereas one is noted as being mentally highly cognitive, etc. Supra relates to that which above is above, over, greater than, superior to, over, superior to, beyond, and transcending. In relationship to lesson number 12, the superliminal, we address some of the aspects of being or seeking to be above the limiting threshold of mere consciousness and or sensation, and more toward the higher mind or higher self, cognition, and the capacities associated with it, conjoined with the capacities to more stabilize the seeing or knowing achieved. A superliminal purpose notation for lesson number 12. This aspect of the superliminal, lesson number 12, is deemed as a counter invocation of God, acronym GOD, God or government order of divinity, as distinguished from God, the acronym government ordinance departments, as constructed via organized corporate civic orders of governments, as founded upon the three-dimensional planes of existence, both positive and negative. And thus we are distinguishing the divine or incorporeal and ethereal aspects of the corporeal aspects of our operative existence at Midgard Earth. Questions? And so a noted aspect of active superliminal mind. So we look at and consider this. There are three aspects of brain in incorporeal form and expressed in the corporal physical body of man. The first aspect of the brain is via the physical brain organ located in the head. The second aspect of the operative brain is located in the physical heart of man. The third aspect of the operative brain is located in the physical stomach and gut of man. The brain is noted as the organic portion and part of the physical man that includes vertebrate central nervous system, which is enclosed within the cranium and is continuous with the spinal cord and composed of gray matter and white matter. Brain controls many bodily activities and is known as the seat of consciousness, of memory, and of emotions. Brain is noted for its intellectual abilities, intellectual powers of mind, and of intelligence. An important aspect of divine being is to know that the three brains, the cranial, the heart, and the stomach gut, are electrically and incorporeally connected. Now the questions. Why is it with this being known factors about the human, why is it that the priesthood doesn't go into this as a lesson of everyday traditional custom and teaching or philosophy? And why is it when the priesthood or politicians or people in rulership suppress the knowledge of this, of the three brains and their connections in relationship to the masses in general? Well, my statement is this. The major reason is because they have misrepresented spirituality. They have deliberately misrepresented religion. They have deliberately misrepresented the true principles of honorable government, etc., for the purposes of enslaving humanity, and have artificially suppressed these aspects of knowledge relative to people knowing themselves in order that people would submit to things that are contrary to their best interest in both the spiritual and the physical aspects of life, period. That is a fact. And by people not being aware of the connection of the three brains, in fact, are less apt to resist or to reject misrepresentations of life, forms of life, their connections to each other, the fields, the electrical fields, and the incorporeal energy fields that connect us all, and thereby less apt to ascend to activating them and liberating ourselves from the dark priesthood who have been operating on or at Midgard for quite some time. And also with the knowing that the time would come relative to the cosmos, sometimes symbolized by the crescent and the star, that humanity would evolve even and in spite of artificial impressions or suppressions, and that we would go to higher planes of life, sometimes referred to as higher dimensions, and we would break free of the artificial bindings that have been put on humanity and at Midgard that's been operative for quite some time. And so due to also to the fact, the reality fact, the cosmic fact, that this energy, transition of energy, is already arriving on Earth, you will see a lot of things taking place relative to the de facto governing powers and the priesthood exercising more de facto powers to suppress humanity on multiple levels. However, in spite of all their activities, their institutions, which were created in the third dimensional planes, have limited or no effectual powers to continue in their existence in the degrees or the energies of the ascending, what you would call energies or dimensions or planes, etc. So at this time, we're experiencing a lot of the chaos that is going on for all institutions that were created or founded in the third dimensional energy, or what you call the Piscean age of I believe, are being dismantled purposely and also by the forces of nature. So it's unavoidable. And so we're sharing some of the superliminal to help all of us along to start being cooperative with each other in the necessity of instituting and activating love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice functionally, and not just by verbal claim. And so the questions arise. What are some of them?
You mean in chat? Let me see if anybody's asking anything. I'm pretty sure they're just listening. We're looking for questions with regard to what Grand Sheik just shared. But let me just add, I know you were talking about the three brains, and I was kind of like in two places at the same time. But I do know we have, the brain, the one in our head, the one in our heart, the one in our gut.
That's the one you refer to most often.
Right, the one in our heart and the one in our gut. And a lot of times people say, I have a gut feeling. We talk about intuition.
Because that is the intuitive mind.
Right.
People know it and they don't know it at the same time.
Absolutely.
Meaning that it's rarely emphasized. Even though people, you know how this is where, so now you're dealing with consciousness, right? They know it, yet they're not cognizant. So that means that they're staying in the level of the subconscious mind, the chamber, the lower chambers.
Right.
And so when you're looking at even what you call circle 7, so you look at the circle of the head, right? You got 7 orifices, 2 orifices, the ears, 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth.
Right.
That's 7 in that circle.
Uh-huh.
The senses, name the senses.
Taste, touch.
They call them the 5, don't they?
Yeah.
Continue.
Smell,
Hearing,
auditory, and what else is there? Taste, we touch, we see, sight.
Yep.
Sight.
All right, so now, when you start considering what they all represent, some are referenced as physical, but their actions are actually abstract. As an example, the sight here is an electrical reflection from the outside in, coming back like a cone that goes to the brain. The brain deciphers it and draws a picture. Therefore, this is why symbolism is used to speak to the brain from ancient time to present.
Absolutely, because sometimes some things like words might change or so forth, but symbols are more universal.
And this is also why many ancient symbols of Africa, Ikuta, and the Yucatan, are misrepresented by the priesthood as being negative, so that you would reject them and not liberate yourself from them. Yet they use them to empower themselves over the masses.
For instance, and we brought this up. I think I brought this up before in talking to just giving some commentary to what you're saying. Traditionally, the symbol of the eagle.
Yes.
So
Aquila.
Okay, but the eagle has been given sort of was the majestic animal. We're not going to negate the beauty and majesty of the eagle, but the symbolism universally for the eagle is war, control, government, and then by contrast, the serpent has been given the negative when it's really that's knowledge, wisdom. That's that kind of
Now, yes, continue. Keep on. Whatever you feel, speak. Go ahead.
No, I'm just
put it out. No, put it out there, because don't hold anything back.
So so those things symbolically, I was looking at a show that actually was breaking down various hieroglyphic symbols that we see. So for instance, many people have seen, and I know we're getting off subject a little bit, but many of us have seen the pictures of the hieroglyphs, and then you'll see sometimes it looks like they'll say, well, that's the Anunnaki, and they had bird heads, and they had human bodies and animal heads. The heads apparently always depict sort of like where that being who actually would be a human in this, if you will, in its appearance. Really, the head was symbolic of the mentality or the might or whatever the mission was. So when you saw an eagle or what looked like a bird, you see the ibis or whatever, you see the bird head, that was sort of like the eagle. So that was more governmental. When you see this, like I said, in the serpent, that was one that was giving knowledge. When you see them holding what looks like a pocketbook, and you see a lot of these things and they're holding like something with a handle, that would have been like let me go back, the pine cones. You see some look like they're passing a pine cone. Well, the pine cone you see symbolic, and the Vatican uses it.
Those would be lessons.
Well, that's knowledge being passed on. Yes. And then the pocketbook or the whatever the purse it looked like would be like a tools. I'm giving you the knowledge to do it. Now here are the tools to do it. So they would be passing on knowledge and information, and there needed to be the balance. You needed the eagle.
Something is the pocketbook is also referenced as the bag of tricks, and it's also bag of keys.
But because it was like there's always a balance, and so you did need both the eagle, which is government, and the serpent, which is knowledge, because apparently a lot of the ancient civilizations evolved so highly using just knowledge that when the negative I'm going to call it egalitarian type energies came in, they were able to overthrow them because they were warlike, and the other ones were using they were using their head, they were using their intuition and all these things.
Let's put it this way: one of the keys of the conquest of the ancient world are two. Just put two, because everything positive and negative is the way ancient ones of our forefathers, i.e., violating some of our own principles, and the hybrid or Germanic tribes overthrowing a peaceful people. As you see, war, or what you would call the respect for life, is a part and has always been a part of African Asiatic culture. And whereas in the nature of general operations, one of the principles of civilization is the keeping of your word, or the honor, the moral integrity of structure and of agreement, or what you call contract. One of the keys to the operative construction of de facto operations at Midgard has been those who chose to take the exact opposite and be what you call bloodletters or bloodshedders, coming as men of peace, but actually deceiving and practicing war. So you have two different characters of operations in nature. That is not to misrepresent or to say that those of our ancient mothers and fathers did not do what you would call less than honorable things, so you understand. But the nature of the civilization principles of the ancient Lemurians, Canaanites, Moabites, based on the operations of cosmic order and the observations and maintenance of the divine laws of nature as a construct, and the order of government, knowing that via that preservation of those principles, you have longevity in civilization. Absolutely, you have what you call karmic collapse, or you would say the principle of reaping what you sow is often referred to as cause and effect, destruction. Much of what you see now. But again, this is again why sometimes when we're going over the problems of humanity at Midgard, particularly in these days, in your more contemporary times, we will remind the people to recognize some of the symbolisms that are in their native original Edamon nature of operation. As an example, Hela, or the eagle. It does mean ruler or overseer, because it actually symbolizes spirituality, because the Hela can look into the sun. Because remember, the nature and the culture and customs of the ancient Canaanite Moabite nation is what you would call the eye, or the people of the eye. And that is the seven senses. So when you deal with the five senses, you also have intuition and insight. Now, when they are conjoined as one, then you get the eye, what they call the eye of Horus, or the one seeing, or the all-seeing eye. Now, when or the divine eye or providence. After the Napoleonic Wars and the captive of the last of the Moabite popes, because originally the Vatican is actually originally African. People don't know that history because that's written out. It's particularly since 1863. And so you have Roma and you have Rome.
Give us a difference.
All right, Roma is pre Napoleon. Rome, that's Roma Roma, pre-Napoleon, Rome, post-Napoleon. And this is where, like, when those who are more honest about history will tell the truth as to why they use Napoleon as you might say, as a reference point. But you understand that these are Roman armies in general. Went around the world shooting the noses and all identifiable constructive aspects of the ancient world off of statues and temples. They would blow temples up, destroy ancient papyri, etc. And that was the beginning of them reconstructing history, not just in the reconstruction in North America. That's where that pattern has its origin. As an example, Aquila, or like you see in Iberia, you see the double-headed eagle with the crown. That means the two sides of the brain, the left and the right side of the brain, and the cognizance of it in one bird. And the bird is one of the few of the species that can look directly into the sun and not be blinded, and also can turn its head 190 degrees, which is why you see the double-headed eagle. That's ancient Iberia, or what people assume to be today only, and this is a misrepresentation, the hybrid Germanic tribes in Germany is actually ours. So, and this is again when you deal with the true European, or we call Iberians, and why the dark priesthood and the scholars never talk about the fact that Europe is Phoenicia, i.e. Iberia, and that it's actually the extension of North Africa or the peninsula. And so in order to reconstruct history, they steal the history and kill off the Aboriginal people, i.e. the Picts, the Maoris, and the Dubs, and hide that history, particularly since the mid-1800s, just as they do in North America. And so as the people are presented with the history, many of our people will reject European history, not knowing it themselves, reject the knowledge of why we would have eagle feathers in our turbans and in our fezzes, which symbolize divinity or the ethereal world, symbolic. And also because particularly the Maghreb is also known as the temple of the moon and sun. So North America is referred to as the temple of the moon and sun. That's the culture. And of course, this is again when you hear these terms in the social engineering of the hybrid Europeans trying to separate Egypt from Africa. They not only mean Hikupta on that side, they actually mean Egypt of the West, the Maghreb, or North America, and the truth of the connection of the two cultures, including to Yucatan, North, South, and Central North America, and including the true history of Hammurabi Bey and Hagar, who ruled Central America, yet they have a grave for Hagar at Mecca. But that's why they don't teach that history together. And also the matriarchy, which is an extension of the high court or the high house of the pharaohs, which is actually a matriarchy. And of course, from that comes the monarchy. And from the monarchy being overthrown is actually, in its truth, Africa and Asia, and the matriarchy structure of government being overthrown. And of course, that's given a negative too, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Well, yes.
From a standpoint of, though, going back to subject matter of intuition, what has happened to us to disconnect us from, or has anything occurred?
It's an artificial construct. This is what we're also established. Remember with the and as we've talked this many times, this is not new. Meaning that because basically the truth, like we talked about before, has no versions. It's just simply what it is. And we're giving synopsis because that's all you can give. Synopsis, basically, of the chronology, the history, what got us to where we are today, what are the motivations of the parties in controversy in relationship to the conquest of nations, as described in the Torah, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bible, in the Pentateuch, into etc. Or the battles of nations, and why the dark priesthood have been suppressing the issue of nationality, distinguished from what they refer to themselves as under the Inquisition operations as the God of this world or owners of the globe or globalists, right? And why they've been killing off the Aboriginal people and then trying to claim Midgard, the earth. And of course, all the dynamics in between. And then, of course, things that are practiced now called censoring or demonetizing, blocking out, killing people's communications accounts are relative to indexus librorum expurgatorius and indexus librorium prohibitorum, which are known also but misrepresented as the great Christian book burners, but they're not Christians, they're Constantinians hiding behind Christianity. And one of the things that the dark priesthood have always done is that they've always practiced, and this is another way to use your superconscious mind to start looking at things through your gut, your heart, and your mind and your head, and conjoin them in order to empower yourself to intuit things, because that's why they don't teach you about that sense, because they know when you go there, you'll start solving problems in all of the idol god systems and all of the de facto government systems that people have put their faith in, including all of the fiat instrumentalities that's created to support these constructs, will in fact collapse, often known as the apostasy, also known as Armageddon, also known as the dying of the old world, of corruption of Satan, and the coming again of the Christ, or the crystallized mind, or the activation of Horus, or the eye, or the Cyclops, or the third eye activity, or the sixth sense, or at least minimally the fifth dimension, or sometimes referred to as the higher planes of life, all representing that same principle, or the anointing of the head with oil, also the ascension, also the kundalini, all symbolize humanity evolving into minimally the higher side of the fourth dimension, which also all things made manifest that shoot through the earth, including the transference of negative energy also, and the capacity to make that discernment so that we can go into the higher planes of life qualified to come out of this bubble kind of thing, or the suppression that has been what is demonstratively referred to as the encasement in hell,
The matrix.
of yes,
Yeah.
of us,
Right.
because it's really us being put in the underground chambers of the church, but not the real church, the church of Satan, but not Satan is also misrepresented too. We don't say that right now. We won't go into that right now. But those who have claimed the Lucifer to have the light, but they're really angels of the dark. That's who's been operating here. The other issue is, so hell is really the executor's chamber. We went through this before.
Right.
So the people, it's not a place to go. It's really those who have not been paying off the de facto taxes to the harlot known as the false queen. That would be represented by both the Queen Columbia, that is politically seated at the District of Columbia at Washington, dealing with the principle of manual, or the rewritten hand, dealing with the hands of man, 10 fingers, and so they represent 10 square miles, representing the 10 fingers, or representing the reconstructing of history and the reconstruction of proper government into a de facto platform known as the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and regulated by the artificial or the substitute queen at the land of Angles, or Ingla land, i.e., District of London, or the City of London, which of course you already know those three stars that their flag that they fly at Washington, representative of the overthrow of the republic that is derived from Muslim law, that is derived from Saba principles, that's derived from Hermetic law, that's represented in what they would call the city of brotherly love, which is the first principle of the pentastar, or what's called a pentagram, which is the symbol of man, etc., and of Anail, or Freya, or Freya, or Friday, etc., or Venus. And that is the pentagram. That's why they even present the pentagram as a negative, when actually it's the sign of man. And as man stands, you'll see man stand like this in a circle, and you have arm, leg, leg, arm, head, Allah forward, Allah backwards, coming from the womb of woman. Therefore, Muslim is not a belief system, it's simply the fetus of all product of the womb. And of course, Allah symbolizes the feminine principle. It's not some guy sitting with a turban on a throne where everybody goes to salami baloney. So don't buy into that. That's not to condemn people who have been taught the anthropomorphic aspect. You understand? Mm-hmm. It's just telling you the truth of the real culture here that's been misrepresented. Because everything that's presented is also misrepresented. And keep in mind, you're dealing with what's the duality of aspects. As another example, to really reclaim the honor of your mothers and fathers, you must present yourself in proper person. You can't represent yourself, because that's the dead. This is why you will always see, whenever there's a controversy of a state, they have told the people or trained the people that they need for a hybrid European of the Sadducees and Pharisees to represent them. At that time, you've given them your birthright, because a liberated man or a liberated woman presents himself, never represented. This is why they always would make the statement that anyone who seeks to represent themselves in a court is a fool, because that means they don't understand what represent means. Represent means, like, for instance, if you show me some of these pictures back here where I might see you, that's a representation. What happens if it starts talking? So when you have another man or woman represent you and you start speaking, you're in contempt. Because you just said that you're a cardboard, you're a poster, you're a picture, you're an abstract, you're not real, you're a prima facie, you're a semblance, as distinguished from that which is real. Thus you're colored, so you have no right to speak. Therefore, they claim you're a state, and they've been robbing us ever since. This body of Sadducees and Pharisees, they have created all the constructs and instruments by which the birthright of man have been stolen, including the marriage certificate, including the birth certificate, including other instrumentalities. So back to the cognates that we're presenting this aspect of the superliminal to get the people cognate of the conscious mind, subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind. Thus, this lesson in the superliminal.
Someone asked the question, if you could touch on, since we're talking about intuition, the Akashic realm and the Akashic records.
The same thing.
The Akashic records.
So the deal of this, the Akashic record that we're looking up as the energy field that surrounds Midgard, that same energy is connected to your gut. See, this is why it's not taught, because we keep reaching out when it's actually within.
Right.
Thinking there's a disconnect. The field of energy, as an example, the field, like, say, for instance, like, because this is the deal also. When you're more cognate, see, because it operates anyway. The deal of it is to recognize when it's operating. As an example, a mother. This is the most perfect example. And even with children, small children, who haven't been contaminated by the social engineering of society. You can, as an example, a mother can have a baby and bring a baby in the presence of other people, right? Now, there's two aspects of these reactions. baby may cry or get nervous because they're not familiar with some of these other beings. That's one aspect.
Right.
Another aspect, they may be picking up negative energy
Mm-hmm.
from one of these beings. They're not contaminated with belief systems yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that is their gut brain acting. When you see children, as soon as they start becoming aware of themselves to some degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you start seeing them express themselves in different ways, and you start seeing signs of their personalities, and you see expressions in their eyes because they start transmitting communications through their eyes. You know, because remember, we're all um, what you would call transmitting beings. We receive and we emit energies. It is that line of energy where actual communications are transferred without speech. It's semi-lost because we have fallen so far. However, that's the nature of our being. The interesting thing, because small babies are not yet in the physical form sophisticated enough to use the body, does not totally mean that the mind is not cognitive. They're trying to exercise this body. But at the same time, there's that subtle communication that the mother and the child has from the door. It's just that we often don't pay attention to it. But they talk all the time. Children talk to the mother with small sounds or even with eye contact, movement of the body, and the mother does it with the child too. But often, because that's not noted or studied, we take it for granted that communication is only with sound and voice. That's really the intuitive mind, or the conjoining of the heart brain, the gut brain, and the cranial brain projecting. And that projection is the intuitive mind, superliminal. Cognizance of it is where some of your so-called more spiritual powers can be executed. But if they get you not to, or to artificially suppress this from childhood, which is what they've been doing, they've actually been vampiring or stealing your power. That is one of the motives as to why the priesthood created the sectal systems of dogmata that have been misrepresented as religion for centuries. Pit the human family against each other while they rule with their demonism and then hide behind the names Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Zikra, Confucius, Buddha, etc., when actually they themselves are angels of the dark. This is the other reason why whenever they're doing things, one of the things that you want to do to study them or to study the politics and the corruption that's on the planet Earth, always usually look at their operations of what is known as projection. They will always do things in somebody else's name. And then when the evil is found out, they'll point to someone else or some other nation. But I suggest that you never go for that. As an example, if the hybrid Europeans, as an example, tell you that China, as an example, as a nation state, is doing something to the people at North America, guarantee it's not Chinese. Guarantee you it's some hybrid Europeans who have been occupying aspects of Chinese governmental structures since the Opium Wars, and who have been transferring both technology, machinery, and industry to China to control other peoples and nations. And whenever they do a negative, they blame the Chinese people, when in fact, it's not coming from the Chinese people. It's coming from some persons who we will not name at this time, but you would know who they are if you did a little bit of research. They always do projection. So put that on your list of study, the word projection. They always do things in other people's names. Also, they duplicate and do less of what you would consider as creation. Most of what they do would be to take something that already exists, steal it, and corrupt it, and then take credit for it. Meaning that every modern so-called invention that's accredited to a hybrid European, 99% of the time did not come from them. It is stolen ancient technology from ancient Yucatan and Africa that already existed, that they stole from the Library of Luxor at Hiccuta for Central America, and hid the books, and then been studying the books with their scholars, and then taking different aspects and back engineering and taking credit for disciplines that they had absolutely nothing to do with. That's a fact. Another reason for that is so that they can rule the world and rule the heirs of Midgard, who have been subdued and bubbled, as you might say. And so, and back to the question of how do we get to where we are, this is where much is concerned about indexus librorum expurgatorius. Expurgatorius is destruction. Prohibitoris is hiding or denial. Prohibitorum is expressed now with censoring, like on internet, Facebook, etc., whereas the cognizance of man is rising, not just because of what appears to be the political atmosphere, but is actually the transference of the earth into the futon belt, which we've talked about for years, and coming into another energy field, and also with the energies of the sun, and this being his temple of the sun and moon, going into what you would call a resting period, but actually expelling some purifications at the same time, getting its energy from what is known as the black sun that is in a hole that activates its field. And by them being, for the most part, embodied in a recessive manifest, they are subject to destruction of, or deterioration of the nervous system, and the problematic references of the UV rays of the sun on its effect of the sebaceous glands that causes what we call leprosy in the Bible, or cancer, skin cancer. The hybrid Europeans embodying the dark side mostly in the recessive bodies, not in all, it's not limited to them, but predominantly are trying to block out the sun because of the ascension. Ascension also means progression of the equinoxes, etc. And so the energy field, or the purifications that's taking place on the earth, they're trying to block it by blocking out the sun. And they're also crisscrossing it. Yes, they are. So you need to know all of this is relative. However, for the Aboriginal people on the planet, a cognizance of the superliminal mind will aid in your intentions with honor to begin aiding yourself and others in the liberation of humanity from the dark priesthood, or what you would call the demons. Because the demons is not some red guy in under the ground. It's from hybrid Europeans who have been under the unum sanctum operations, and for quite some time, about 1400 years, ruling the world, getting to the point of having the capacity to contaminate and to rule the world in an absolute de facto platform. That's the truth.
Comments.
Oh, and also, Dr. Nayo, it is to present the cognizance, whereas the people, and why the people have been always taught that the incorporeal world and the corporeal world are separated. You don't worry about the corporeal world because you're going to deal with the spirit. Yeah, right. Spirit is breath, but the incorporeal world is the abstract. You get the point, meaning the unseen.
Which is just as real.
It is
it's
the
more
real.
so real.
It is the real.
Right. More so real than
So
actually.
Corpor real and incorpor real. Yes. But continue.
No, I'm just saying the part that we have been encouraged to stay away,
to
dismiss, and or leave to the
them.
leave
to the priesthood.
The priesthood to interpret or tell you how much of it that
you've been pulling us into the pits of hell, the executor's chamber, and thus that's the origin of tithe tax. That's what tithe is. It's a tax.
Right.
They've been draining your energies, and they've been using it to destroy nations. Thus, the fiat, thus the blind faith are absolutely connected. Yes, they are.
Right. And I want to say something, because you don't get a chance to see the chat and what necessarily what's going on and
so let them know that, because I think because a lot of times as I'm traveling, people will expect me to respond to some of the questions, and you, as you already know, that I don't have direct access to the chat.
Right. So you don't. But one of the things I want to bring out, and for those to whom it applies will know what I'm talking about. I see so much divisiveness and negativity at times coming from individuals within the chat. And it's mainly because either they don't understand where somebody's coming from, or they don't like where someone's coming from, which they perfectly have a right not to and not to. But I feel that this is one of the reasons why we have been so easily overthrown. The divisiveness that has been able to infiltrate
us. That's a tort response. Keep that in mind.
Right, because like I said, everybody is not right and everybody's not wrong, but there somehow seems to be a disconnect when one Moor can just kind of desecrate another Moor because they don't agree with them.
The new old.
Right, it's the end, but it's the energy. It is the energy that is being spewed out, the venom that's coming out of about. There might be some among us who may not be exactly on the right path, but there's a way.
Yes.
Without seeming like you are the executioner, you the judge, jury, and the executioner, and I need everybody else to get on board with me. I'm saying this to whomever thinks that you get my attention, because I'm the one looking at the chat. I'm not going to respond to negativity, and if it gets too out of line, that's why I'm going to put up respect the chat. And if the people don't see that, need to see that they need to respect the chat, I will block you, because this is a place for education, information, confirmation. This is not a place, we can take some stuff offline. You can email us, but this is not the place for the negativity and the fighting. This is a place of unity, and I needed to say that.
All right, now this is important, and as you already know, Dr. Madeline, over the years, I don't let that energy bother me. Number one, I got alligator skin. Number two, I remember when we talked about a couple years ago, and it's not new, but we talked about all mask or off.
Yes.
You got to remember, as knowledge is being exposed, that starts liberating people. Other people who have been controlling other groups of people are threatened, because the enlightenment that people receive by starting to think on the multiple levels, they liberate themselves from opportunists who've been having their hands in their pockets, in the people's pockets, or what is known in the Bible as stealing the widow's pennies. And when you inform people and they start exercising some of these things, they begin to find them to be true. Again, why often, Dr. Neal, you'll hear me say to the people, don't accept what I'm saying. Do research. And for others who are critics, I may say, I'm not arguing with you, don't argue with me, prove me wrong.
Well,
and in doing so, for themselves, if a being is being honest, they will find this information because it's available to anyone.
Right.
For those who are less than honest, they're threatened because they've been used to, when you study most institutions, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, governmental organizations, other clubs, etc., they pretty much have had what you call dominant control over the people, including having their hands in their pockets, where people have been on a regular basis donating financially their services, their time, and have been taking the positions of little boys and girls or children or a flock of sheep, not thinking for themselves, unable to solve problems, weak-minded, not respecting that their divine mother gave them keys in themselves when they were formulated into that fetus and brought to the earth plane, given tools that have been artificially suppressed, and they think they have no power. And people who have been what you call administering the club's dogma systems have become what you call wealthy, very comfortable, very well taken care of at the expense of the poor and the widow's pennies by perpetrating misrepresented religion, misrepresented, that's called dogma, a mixed truth with falsehood, and have been loath for people to find out that the intuitive mind is actually a defense mechanism given by nature. As an example, you know how, like, say, for instance, you can go into you can, whether it's day or night, you can be going into an area where you run among people, or some people can pass you, and you can see in their eyes without expressing whether they're smiling or not, whether that person is negative.
Yeah, no, but
that's the intuitive mind. It's not this brain. It is the gut mind and the heart mind that sends a message to the brain mind that puts you on guard, and then you become alert, and then you start what you would call opening your eye, and it's not just this eye, it is the pineal eye for defense. That is nature in action. Now, when people start respecting the superliminal mind, when they start going into any institution or getting involved with any great body of people, etc., the priesthood, and particularly negative opportunists, con artists, fakers, all these people with all these different titles that claim to be helping people, they can't hide. This is another reason why you have some. So what appears to be division is not always division in the aspect that you appear on the surface based on what you would think would be unreasoning misunderstanding. No, it is deliberate hostility because they have been exposed. Because the knowledge exposes. See, this is like this. You know how, like, when you teach people the art of the con game, and then the guy down the corner who got the 3-card molly can't play the game on the little children, and the widows and the women trying to raise their children by themselves because their men have been taken away by these same priests in their private prisons, POW camps, who seem like they have nothing to do with it. And they become aware, and they can read them upon sight because they've started respecting their divine relationship of the subconscious mind, the superconscious mind, and the conscious mind coming to superliminal consciousness, dealing with the 7 senses in the circle of the head, etc., which is a defense mechanism given to them by nature. So the liberation of humanity is starting to take place regardless of the constructs, artificial, the straws, artificial, the misrepresented dogmas, artificial, the color of office, artificial, the color of law, artificial, the color of authority, artificial, which have been in operation, and the colored philosophies that have been promoted for the benefit of the dark priesthood and people in government and in pseudo religion altogether who have been partnering to enslave humanity. That's why they troll. That's why they are disagreeable. Not because they don't comprehend, understand, overstand. Is because truth is a threat to the corruption that has been operative at Midgard for centuries. So I don't apologize for the truth, and I don't sit around trying to play with you.
Just let me clarify. I really wasn't speaking.
No, I'm implying in general.
Right. So I wasn't.
I know that you're implying in general with some of the comments.
I'm being specific to certain things, but what I'm saying is, this is not the place. This chat platform is not the place for people to come and air the dirty laundry or the issues they have with others. I can respect the fact that people have issues with others. This platform is not for that. This is educational. This is informational. This is inspirational. This is confirmational, not confrontation. Because you can have confrontation. This is just not the platform for that. And I don't mean you can't disagree. I'm saying take your personal disagreements to your own platform, so that the people who want to learn and hear will not have to.
This is for them.
Yeah. Okay. You have something you want to add to that?
So basically, is to get the people cognate of the conscious mind, the operative subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind, because it's part of the necessity for people or your inbred defense mechanism, so that you don't have to get caught up in the fake psychology of looking for a sacrificial lamb again to come save you, that the savior is within, that your government order of divine operation is within, God is within, and know that, and start trusting your intuitive mind, because much of the solutions for humanity are going to come from people who will become cognate of the superconscious mind and start trusting themselves to pay attention to it. Because there's also the scale of justice. You know, like you see the symbol in astrology of the scale of justice, when you see the
Libra.
Yes, and you see the bandana on her head, on her eyes.
They say it's blind.
Because that's not necessary.
You don't have to see. Yeah.
That's not the seven. Once the seven senses conjoin, then the third eye opens up, and that's true. So they don't want the people to know. See, it's sort of like, you know how like a con artist, priests don't want the people to really know the truth about the Bible or the history of the Bible, the history of the Quran, the history of Wuaski, the history of the Urantia book, the history of the Torah, the Pentateuch, the Bhagavad Gita, the other books, and the connection of them all in different aspects, and the capacity intellectually to separate the dogmatic introduction of things that are more connotative and less denotative, and therefore the connotative linguistics that is really operative, not by opinion, but by deliberate meetings of people who know these things, who have been controlling the education system to artificially suppress humanity. And so the ignorance of humanity is not by nature, but by them being subjugated to institutions who have been controlled, which have been controlled by the dark priesthood, who they've trusted and thought was bringing them to Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad, and to those representative seers and Fatima, etc., and have been misrepresented. Now, that's not a condemnation of the people who have been participants in and who are still participants in these different orders. It is just to say that those who have not spoken up, the cleanup, have been what you would say participants or conspirators by default, for not speaking up for what they know to be the truth, and allow the false concepts to take light and to take root in society, and yet turn around and complain about the negative conditions of people on the planet and pretend that they're going to go to the different holy books without a real understanding or understanding or comprehension of the origins and the alterations out of the original cultures and the original tongues and customs, and have a clearer understanding of the books so that they can operate more clearly at Midgard. No, they deny that. That's why they don't want information out with the public, because it frees them, and they know that all these institutions that they've been drawing finance from the poor successfully with for centuries, that they will no longer have that mental power over the people, for they will be liberated, for they will know more of the truths behind all of these things and know that it's already imprinted in them. And at that point, when they start getting to the subliminal mind, which they're going to get to anyway, that the universe or the cosmos will start downloading on them anyway. And they won't have to go to some school. It will be totally unnecessary. You don't want them to know that either, do they?
I think the school situation is just a...
School's a copy of the womb. Get over it. So what happens when women really wake up in honor? Really? They're going to bring them here already what? Already erudite. How about that? Get mad at that. Why do you think the priesthood always suppress women? You think they don't know what I'm talking about right now? Yes, they absolutely do. Why they only tell the people that the Ankh, the symbol of the Ankh, the holy cross of the womb, only means generation and regeneration? Only. Why don't they go further? Do they not want women to know the power of the womb, that if they would stop dealing with these dogma systems, that the power with bringing champions to the earth already exists with them? You want to solve the problems of the planet? Respect your womb. For real, not some moral appeal and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Start knowing yourself for real. And stop using sex as a sport. And begin to really have a comprehension of the use of the moon and the cycles of the moon. They told you is evil.
Let me share something.
Please do.
This from How to Live Large on a Small Planet, and this is based on, and this is called the chapter heading is Islands of Light, and it says many of us have a deep yearning to live together in conscious oneness, which is true. This yearning to live in a sacred community of kindred spirits to create a new, larger, and these were family based on love and oneness is embedded deep within our cellular memory banks. It is something we have carried within us for a long, long time. It is one of our most precious dreams. Over the years, numerous communities have been established with these goals in mind, yet most, if not all of them, have failed. There have been spiritual, religious, alternative, and hippie communities which have tried to create something new, but always there was the intrusion of duality, which kept them from achieving their goal. So it talks about we have to get from, out of duality into oneness in order.
Well, this is what it is. A cognizance of it, what it is. Now let's look. Having the priesthood under the guise of the political platform created doctrines, written doctrines, and operations that actually have been pitting men and women against each other. Marriage, which has been misrepresented totally, which is why they don't talk about matrimony. Marriage has been a tool of the priesthood to pit men and women against each other and sell themselves to one another. And the corporate state, operated by the priesthood and members of the Roman Curia, have always controlled the union and the divorce to steal their estates, and always put things in place that end up destroying the marriages in the first place so that the estates can be stolen. And men and women have been traditionally doing what? Fighting each other, and often starting to build beautiful lives together, beautiful homes, and within a 3-year cycle, they're at each other's throat trying to steal each other's estate. Now tell me that's not the practice. It is the practice. But knowing that that comes from the priesthood of Rome in its origin and the Circle Church and Chancery, Fleet Street, England, controlling the judicial system and estates, i.e., Chancery Court. Yeah, right. Did any wonder why they don't want you to start thinking from your intuitive mind? Yes, it is. Once you start knowing and rejecting them and stop dealing with them, stop bringing them into your life and stop making contracts with them and those who follow them, of course, they're going to be disagreeable with us, aren't they? Yeah. Because they're parasites, all of them.
Here's a question for you from Jeff. What does Grand Sheik think about all of the news about UFOs as of late, and how does it affect us Moors? Are they related to us?
As of late, it always have been. Let's get over that too. There's never been the now. It has always been. It's not new. It's just been hidden. And you're going to have to communicate with many others from the intuitive mind. There's another reason why we're talking about this, because you're going to be facing it anyway. So that those who've been enslaving you and enslaving humanity can't use it as a weapon against you, because they're going to do that too.
The truth of the matter is there are benevolent as well as malevolent.
Isn't it positive, negative, everything?
Right.
All right.
So
what is one of the reasons why some things have not been open to us is because we've been pretty much exercising all of our institutions and our thought processes in the lower self.
And so in the third dimension.
Exactly. And so not being cognizant of other planes of life, we have not been exercising the mind that qualifies us on those communication levels. And we have been garnered, or what you call geared to exercise what you would call the three lower chakras, which is also why the sex is a sport. And that's the only place where we look for happiness, not finding it, limiting ourselves. And it's been used against us, which is why most of us find ourselves in this cycle of looking for the elusive butterfly of love and getting frustrated because we don't find it, because we have limited understanding or comprehension of the reality of our being, including the superconscious mind. And so we limit ourselves only to the carnal realms of the third degree, or what you would call the three-dimensional world.
One of the issues with finding love, I see, is that we fail to love ourselves first.
Of course, but we don't know ourselves.
Right. So when you can't, won't, take time to love and love yourself, it is impossible for you to find something or someone outside of you to make you complete, because you first got to find that love, that wholeness, that oneness in you.
Now let's look at the fact. Remember, when you begin to study this, and it's not that we're not responsible for that, because we are. However, the priesthood has been deliberately suppressing certain aspects of the human experience in order to put us in darkness, or to keep us in darkness. As an example, all scholars around the world, some will admit, some will not, but upon examination, you will find it to be true, that the hybrid Europeans of the priesthood, after the takeover of the Vatican by representatives for and Napoleon, etc., have set the world back, knowledge-wise, discipline-wise, information-wise. At least minimally, they will admit to at least 500 years, but the fact is known at least 1200. Therefore, those who are operating government in their de facto platforms are operating at least minimally 300 years technologically ahead of the masses, and they've been using it negatively and for selfish purposes. And logically, they don't want the people to start operating in their superconscious mind, because you won't need them to teach you. You will start attaching yourself electrically to the cosmic mother, or the Akashic record, or to the cosmic mother by nature, i.e., fifth dimensional ascension. Not a place to go, state of mind. How about that?
Here's a question from Tiffany Conway. Salam family, I'm joining you from Guyana, South America. We are in the process of nationalizing and would like to know where we fit in the Moorish family.
You fit in just like you do here. Once you understand, if you have available to you Circle 7 Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, go to chapter 47 and understand the biblical principle of the superdivere of the dividing of the land between Ham and Cush, and you'll find out that you're Cushites. You're already Moorish. It's not something to come to, it's something to become aware of. Self. You're already home, Dorothy. Now you understand Wizard of Oz. Not a place to go. You're already home. You just become cognate in the area where you are, with people where you are, and start shedding the misrepresented information relative to governments and nations promoted by Rome, who conquered us. Get over it. It's sort of like the difficulty for many people when they become aware of some of this information is thinking they have to come to us type thing or come in another area and you're already home. You need to promote the knowledge because it's already there. As a matter of fact, in Guatemala, etc., in other areas, more evidence is actually there that gives the old history than it is been exposed up here. That's the truth. You just need to recognize it. It's all around you. Re-embrace it in the proper concept, morally and ethically, though, outside of the fake political paradigms that have been promoted. And you'll also understand why the hybrid Europeans have been controlledly misrepresenting the OAS, or the Organization of the American States, and also why they've been misrepresenting their private corporation as America the country, when you know and the world knows that America is the continent from the northern hemisphere of Midgard to the central equator to the southern hemisphere of Midgard, comprising America, of whom you are. And America is a dialectical adjustment of Al-Moroccan. You're already a Moor. You can't become it. You already are. Now you must know the distinction between the Aboriginal people, distinguished from the hybrid European Germanic tribes who have been conquering us under the guise of the Spanish Inquisition, the Roman Inquisition, and the colonial operations from England under the fake dynamics of the so-called Columbus era, which is not a man, but an era of political operations.
Yeah. Speaking of Columbus not being a man, I mean, we were listening to Dane Calloway's his latest
Many
film,
props to Dane.
Yeah, regarding the fictionalization of the creation of the story of Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner, which is, at first glance or thought, you might go, oh, that has to be true because there's all of this information and all of this documentation out there of and even, I've looked at something and they were the places where they say they were, where she was. It's right here in Wilmington, right on, with the
Baltimore area,
and the different, so places, Philly and stuff like that. But when we realize how much of a theater that we have been subjected to, we've been played almost
still hiding the history.
Everything that we thought it just happened when they did the War of the Worlds. It has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years before that. And so it makes sense that creation would happen of this fictionalization of the revolt, the rebellion, and the Underground Railroad and all these things, because it facilitated I guess what eventually became the what do you call expatriation of our people to West Africa from here?
Yeah. Oh, even when you read the congressional records about Senator Balboa and the creation of Liberia in order to support the reconstructed history, to make the people think they came from the east side, while we did is before the great earthquake. Point. In order for them to steal the land, which is problematic, which is also why they call the capital of Liberia Monrovia. Yeah, you need to understand all those dynamics, all those choices.
They became what's called immigrants.
North America is Northwest Africa.
Right.
Central America, Central, Old Mexum, Old Mech, and you'll see Dane recognizes that he's Old Mech. Old Mexum. We know that, but it's no big secret. It's sort of like people, the truth, and I comprehend that it does. It makes people uncomfortable because they don't want to accept that they've been had. Because we like to refer to ourselves as being insightfully spiritual. And we've been played. Get over it. Remove your ego. Start recognizing you've been conquered. Honor your mothers and fathers for real. And start getting back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers. And understand that you're heirs of Midgard. And Midgard is the name of this particular earth. This particular firmament is Midgard. Get over it. You've just been contaminated. And you've been busy worshiping idol gods, and you've been played, and you've been robbed. Over it. We can get out of it. Respect your higher self. Know of your higher self, and know of your lower self. And seek the higher planes of life. They've always been available to you. You've been rejecting them. And that's the division, Dr. Naila. People really not willing to accept that our concepts have been wrong. The fact of this continued failure in our communities is your proof that we haven't had the truth. Because we certainly hadn't been free. With all this worship we've been doing all over the place, acting like fools on our own land, don't even know that we're on our own land. And then mocking us at every turn, including the Mummers Parade in Philadelphia, city of brotherly love.
And they've added in sisterly affection.
Yeah, including the capacity of them in the late 1800s to transfer the legitimate Capitolium under treaty and constitution from the territories that you know as Shakamoxum to an area of man, hand of man, 10 square miles at the 7 hills that Polk gave to them to establish a throne for the Roman goddess Columbia, and have been ruling the world with war from the 7 hills of Rome, which you know is Washington District of Columbia. Don't pretend y'all don't know that.
There was a question, and I've seen it a couple of times, but the question, it's just come up a few times about whether or not we should be signing or writing in lowercase or
the capital principle is really the grammatical deliberate indication of unum sanctum ownership by putting in the written form the living in all capital letters, which is known as the man of straw or the straw man, etc. Which is why, as an example, if you look in an unabridged dictionary and you look at, as an example, let me show you, say more as an example.
I think what they're asking, though, just for clarity, whether it should be all lowercase.
Yeah. Listen. The real deal is understand what its function is.
Okay.
You understand? The function is a claim of a dead estate. You must know what its function is. And when you agree to it or don't challenge it, if you get the point, that's an implied acceptance of abandonment of a state. And of course, because they are vampires, recessive, that they are claiming it. and therefore claiming it for Rome, etc. That is its function of the non-negere. And of course, you would not write your appellation in all capital letters, because that would be an agreement that you are dead and they're claiming your estate. And this is also why they reclaim the estate under what you would call admiralty or maritime law, or law of the seas, or piracies, and the privateering of the foot soldiers for Rome, i.e., which would be the barristers, accredited registry of Fleet Street, England, of the Circle Church and the Chancery, and why all claimed estates are delegated in what you call ecclesiastical and chancery court of England. This is why the chancery operators of the bar operate all judicial platforms in the West, or what you call the judicial platform, via Fleet Street, England. And this is again why they transferred the Capitolian to Washington, D.C. And of course, this is all of the estates, marriage certificates, and birth certificates. And most people just talk about the birth certificates. They don't talk about the marriage certificates, where they claim ownership of the womb and claim that the mothers, which is the gateway from heaven to earth of all forms of life, that she is an informer and transfers her offspring, her seed, to Rome as a sacrifice. And thus you are declared dead, and thus the straw, or the legal fiction that they create that is not you, and then attach to it an estate, and then claim that all labor, all future hereditaments, corporal and incorporeal, from the dead is transferred to the popes of Rome and the bishopric of Rome, and thus symbolically they have snuffed the life, or the oxygen, or the Christ, or the monad, or the crown that energizes the nuclear monad light of the pineal gland in the head. And thus, even with the masking that they're doing now, is to reduce the oxygen flow, to slow down fifth dimensional ascension that's happening. No matter what guise they put it on, that's what that's really about, to snuff the light of Christ, etc. The straw is the instrumentality, or the bottomry instrument, created by the bishoprics of Rome and executed by the members of the Circle Church and Chancery, which you know as the Bar Association, which are told of in the Bible and the Septuaginta as the Sadducees and the Pharisees, who have been robbing you and stealing the widow's pennies, who have been falsely representing you, denying your capacity through miseducation to present yourself, and they write it in all capital letters, which means the dead, etc. However, and this is to be understood or comprehended, it does not mean necessarily that in proper grammatication that the beginning of a projection of knowledge is given the capital or the emphasis of the first capital letter and then the small case, but it means all case capital. This is why all transference of contract where they're doing business or claiming right of trade, they will always put the appellation not as an appellation, but as a name, which means a corpse or a corporation, and they will put the name all capital letters. And so that is the argument in its absolute valid point of non-capitalization, in order that you do not agree to be dead.
But if you initial cap and lowercase, that's fine.
That's not wrong.
That's not wrong. That's
all caps is what represents the dead.
right.
So capitis nolo actually means don't put all caps. That's what it means. Because it represents the dead corporation by which the vampires extract the estate of the living. Thus, the ritual that they often use of eating a cracker as the body of Christ and then drinking wine as the blood, because they are cannibals and they are symbolically devouring Christ or your capacity to activate the pineal gland.
And they had the so-called church actually participating in their ritual unknowingly.
Well, the church is that. See,
well, I said the so-called. I'm saying the so-called because it's not. I'm talking about people. Communion would be each time people would do communion, you're acting out their ritual. You're keeping the vibration and the energy of their ritual.
It's important, and this is back to what's important, because it's important to recognize that they took over the church and contaminated it. They are not really the church.
Right.
They are imposters. Because the church actually means the astrological circle or the zodiac. It is the stars of the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they what they do is that they take that which is already existing and contaminate it. This is again why they sacrifice little children. Under the guys, there is, for those of you who are out there right now, do a little current research and you'll find that certain so-called U.S. government agencies have been knowingly ordering for years baby parts of aborted babies. And don't think that Roe versus Wade was put in place for them to care about women. They needed this source for both themselves, for organs, and for food, your offspring, including the stem of the brain that connects the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, and the superconscious mind operations, but in its organic form deals with the cranial, the heart, and the stomach for regeneration purposes. Don't you ever think it's what other than that or ever was.
I got an intuitive download that not only the parts that we know of that they take, they also take the
DNA.
the so-called but the so-called fibroid tumors, because those are a lot of times you'll find the fetus that was in that fibroid. Those fibroids are babies that didn't completely develop, and they're also using them in their solutions. When they put everything together.
And for the makeup
and the makeup.
Food,
yep.
Makeup for so-called the hybrid wealthy women.
Fibroid is another surgery harvesting.
Yeah, they use it also for salves as because remember, and this is particular the target, although it's many children, even some of their own, but mainly for as an example, Haiti, when they had this thing going on in Haiti, and they were so-called helping the children. Well, no, they were using them because they need the melanin in their brain stem. Also, because as the Earth went through the Futon belt, the sun is more effectively, by default, creating cancers for what you would call mutants who are operating on Earth, whose physicality doesn't exactly harmonize with what might be called the indigo or indigenous people, real heirs of the earth. And the sun is a purifier, so the sun is starting to kill off mutants. So as a protective sunscreen, they need your babies to make into solution, and don't think that that's far-fetched, because it's absolutely the truth. And they've been eating them too. Let's get over that. Aside from other things that they've been doing to them, including drawing their essence, and you might call it plasma. For real. So we have some uncomfortable things that are going to open up as far as revelation, that's going to prove to you that some of these beings are not your friends that have been governing you, that you've been wrongfully referring to wrongfully as quote unquote your government. Another reason why we're doing the super.
In other words, your controllers.
Yes, they've conquered you. However, the superconscious mind starts breaking the bubble. That's why they don't want you to go there. You know, like we were talking about earlier, Dr. Naima, how we get there. Just don't assume that we're just here because we're here in this condition, and understand that it is artificial constrictions that have been put in place, including old technology, advanced technology to suppress us in our development. And we just have lost knowledge of the tech by which to break through. However, fifth dimensional energy that's brought in by Uranus, Jupiter, and Saturn line up, and Saturn and Uranus operatively ruling the Aquarian star system right now is breaking up all of the institutions. Factually, we're talking about from the cosmic level, of all institutions that were created in the third dimensional realm, so they can't stand up anyway. So it's better that you know about the superconscious mind so that you can start using it right now and start, as you would say, saving yourselves. This is also why Drew Ali made mention of the higher planes of life and said, if I could just get you all thinking again, you save yourselves. Put your ego aside and start studying. Start researching for yourself. Don't accept what I'm saying. Make it your own.
Titi Asha asked me to share this. Her comment is that in Hindustan, they were burning straw, claiming there were dead bodies. There wasn't. The reporters or actors were given orders to say that it's all symbolic. The 99-year lease is up. The Ottoman Empire is back, but they need you dumb and entertained. Yes. So you lose out on reclaiming your empire.
Yes. And this is why you will see that reflected with the IRS lease of 99 years being terminated a couple years ago, which is also why Donald Trump, by virtue of dealing with the bankruptcy of their private foreign de facto corporation, pulled the IRS of the Circle Church and Chancery into the defunct U.S. Treasury to cause them to issue more of their bottomry instruments that they've been using to devour nations into the what would call the currency, not monetary, currency system of estate trade that caused them to go bankrupt in order to help in the process of dismantling the Piscean Age priesthood who have been the demons of the planet. That's a fact. So you need to understand why I told you a couple of years ago that Donald Trump is assigned. I'm not supporting Donald Trump. I'm just telling you they're battling over your estate.
Mr. T.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what that's about.
We don't want to trigger them.
And it's not just him. He's the face. But it's sort of like a lot of truths will not be accepted from the people coming from the direct heirs. So therefore, some things will be done via the hybrids. And like Prophet Noble Ali said, I'm going to make the Europeans tell you the truth. Now that the middle class has been dissolved, they can't blame somebody else. Oh, the Mexicans are taking American jobs, and these foreigners from Nicaragua and Guatemala and from South America is crossing the border of America and stealing American. They can't play that game no more.
So Americans are coming into America.
Americans is just coming to other parts of their house. Thank you very much. Message to all. So you see, the hybrids are still fighting over our state. And the Ottoman Empire is the last vestige of the Moorish Empire. And all of the agreements of operating at the Maghreb have been what you call, not only by virtue of the time cycle expired, but by virtue of violation of all treaties have been terminated. Therefore, the U.S. is broke because it wasn't their estate in the first place, and it isn't now. However, those of you who are direct heirs of the estate must come into this new order, not the new world order, but the order of the Christ age, morally and ethically armored to do justice. Thank you very much. And this is why one of the philosophical codes that the illustrious prophet Noble Drew Ali left for us, why he said Jesus means justice. You must know that's not an etymological definition. That is a sociological, ethereal definition. Study that carefully.
Here's a question from Noble Teresa L. Will the superconscious mind, with the superconscious mind, is that how we will distinguish who has had the V? Because I can't help but wonder how that whole situation is going to play out.
This is where the Septuaginta and the Bible, which is actually Berber origin, expresses in the revealing of things, or in Revelation, where you will have within yourself, not from some outside extraneous point of information, but from your pineal and from your superconscious mind, the capacity to separate the wheat from the chaff. That's what that means. That means the activation of the superconscious mind. You'll need no outside guide, for the guide or the God or the government ordinance of divinity is within. And that's where you have the Trinity connection of the electrical system of the cranial brain, the heart brain, and the stomach gut brain. Cognitively operative, because it's in you. Thank you very much.
Here's a comment from Derwin Hunt. This is the reason we need you, Parisha means you, Grand Sheik, so desperately is because the true understanding is the study of words. Your knowledge of words is priceless. Thank you for your presence, and it's written presence like a gift.
Well, it is, you know, how the Septuaginta says, every man, the time has come that every man, every woman, every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. That means the restoration or reversion of your lost estate, to be cognitively known, comprehended, understood, and overstood by you, not because someone else needs to tell you, because it's divinely your own, i.e., the meek shall inherit Midgard, earth. Thank you very much.
Someone asked a question if you were aware of Set Atlantis L. Are you aware of Russell J. Gold? And what is his role as it pertains to us Moors?
Present, because on the immediate, no.
He's
So
saying he's
present some information, some support footnotes.
Postmaster, he says.
Mark.
It's not Mark.
It's like that nature. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was had a conversation with a scholar earlier today, a very honored scholar, who is very, very knowledgeable about the true operations of civilization and culture on the land. And one of the things that she and I was discussing was the fact that many and much of the conversations who are coming from beings like them should actually be coming from Moors who allege themselves to be cognate of the estate issues that's operative at Midgard. There's another reason why we're talking about the intuit mind, because many of these people who should have been telling you these things decades ago and have breached their trust of their positions and then allowed, by certain circumstances, hybrid Europeans to speak things that they should have been speaking. I give credit to those who have been speaking up. However, they're not the direct heirs. I don't condemn them because their middle class has been dissolved by the dark priesthood, which is why many of them will start speaking up to tell the truth. Where were they before when they were killing off speakers like Il Malik, like Malcolm, and the 33-degree Mason who tried to make a recompense to his people named Martin Luther King, Michael. Yeah. Where were they then? Where were they when they were torturing Emmett Till? Where were they then when they assassinated Noble Drew Ali? Oh, now that the middle class has been dissolved, a lot of people are speaking up, aren't they? I don't condemn them. I appreciate that they're doing some of the work. But all of the motives are not necessarily because some of these people suddenly came to some moral position of comprehension, and now they want to tell the truth about the de facto platform of Kaiklos, known as the Democratic Party, distinguished from the implied honor, but not really honor, of the Republican Party, and the distinctions of the Cotton Whigs and the conscience Whigs, and the overthrow of the republic that is derived from honor, honesty, confederation principles of fatwa coming from Muslim law, coming from Saba law, coming from Wudan, coming from the ancient Sabian Moors, the ancient Lemurians, Hittites, Canaanites, and Moabites, the true heirs. How about that? Why don't they talk about that? However, some of the unborn that are now born will be speaking up. I have no doubts of that. However, thanks for helping. Better late than never.
Question. Okay. Can you explain what's going on with Israel and Palestine at this time?
It's an interjection because the dark priest has been dismantled, and it has a lot to do from that of the ethereal plane being expressed on the corporal plane of operations on a smaller scale, kind of like demonstrated with the Kaiklos order and the demon platform called the Democratic Party, operatively trying to overthrow the representative for interjection of correction represented by Donald J. Trump to correct a lot of the fallacies that has been taking place since 1861 and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, with the demonstration of the overthrow of the republic that had to do with the last vestiges of Moorish power at North America, in truth, and setting up bottomly instrumentalities for the theft and the transference of the estates of the true Americans into the hands of the operant members of the British accredited registry on behalf of the fake Queen of England, to be delivered to the Bishopric of Rome under the unum sanctum operations and the doctrine of discovery, etc., which is the problems that we're having now. And so what you'll see the play acting out of them trying to get rid of Trump because he's interfered their operations. In other words, he didn't sell out. He's trying to help fix things. So you need to look at the real history to understand what's going on right now. Politically. Super conscious mind will help you in that area. You won't need to accept what I'm saying. You'll see it for yourself because your third eye will start opening up. Those who are not already on the path, because many of you are already on the path. Matter of fact, many of you are already on the path, or you wouldn't be here with us at the House of Reawakening Minds if that were not so. Also, others who are trolling because they were already aware. They were already aware, truthfully, of the direction that this platform was going into or onto, ascending. So they were already put in place even before we started, because they knew anyway.
The question. From Enigma Scorpio. Can you speak about women fibroids and hysterectomies? I just want to, before you go, I want to
fibroids.
I want to say this too. I'm not sure if he's on this on the call, on the chat. He may be, but I'm going to put up the banner for Dr. Botanica. Dr. Botanica wrote a book called Stealing a Woman's Treasure. And he knows, a lot. That's what he wrote about, all of the unnecessary hysterectomies and so forth that have been, performed on women, and largely a lot on our women. There are,
they were the first and main targets. That must
right.
be understood. So when you're talking, and in the future, we'll probably, if we can, and you remind me, Dr. Naila, that we want to do some political analysis of the Roe versus Wade colorable legislation and its real function. But the real deal is that uterine fibroids is the natural, for the most part, is the manifest of the monad into the physical form outside of the spark of semen, meaning needing or not activated, or this is where an egg comes from fallopian tube, left or right, in cycled with the moon, in harmony with nature, whereas the womb activates without the help of the male to generate or to bring life. Sometimes that is referred to as, quote unquote, the virgin birth. And the uterine fibroid is where, and this has much to do with both the intake of outside forces, i.e., improper food, stressful environment, etc., and other social operations, also state of mind of the woman, etc., whereas the activation of the champion seed, which that usually what it is, does not complete development and is locked on the wall of the womb. And it would be the Muslim, or what is known as the fetus or the Muslim undeveloped, because Muslim is not a belief system. Remember, it's the fetus. It's the muscles, the tissue, the bone and hair structure of the manifest temple of man, soul of man temple for traveling in the physical plane that attaches to the wall of the uterus and the birth canal and does not fully formulate, but grows a little bit and then stops, having much to do with her energy, mental state, and is usually by virtue of the fact of her state of mind and that the womb is not activated totally divinely, and therefore it does not totally manifest. That's usually the source of the uterine fibroid. However, from the position of the dark priesthood, that is valuable substance, because it is the more pure form of the gateway operations manifest, and that is highly valued for its genetic substance, for real. And so they always try. That's another reason why the dark priesthood always steals the placenta even when babies are manifest through, because that's also important.
That's the birthday cake.
That's the planet also.
Yeah, and the birthday cake.
Yeah, birthday cake, and also because of the genetic material. And of course, they use it to also do genetic studies in eugenics so that they can create both viruses, poisons, toxins, and other weaponized material to attack the real heirs of Midgard to kill off people. That's used in those studies too, as well as still used. Most of the fibroids are used or stays in laboratory form. Some of the aborted babies are more used for the same purposes, but also still for food.
I was thinking about,
and for cosmetics.
I was thinking about where I take Cat and Treasure to the groomer. He has hens, red hens. I brought in some, and they lay eggs without the benefit of a rooster. But then there are some chickens that do have eggs that have been with a rooster, right?
Yeah.
So, but they make these with he has no rooster, and they lay maybe 3 or 4 dozen a
That's
week.
another thing that they don't want women, the hominidae, to know about themselves. And this is again why the priesthood often would always promote the psychology that the spirit realm has nothing to do with the physical. So just deal with the physical. There's a spirit realm itself. You seek to go there someday rather than recognize Hex Alpha or Ab, which is your pyramid up and your pyramid down in balance, known as Seal of Suleiman, or the emblem of the Moorish nation, which is actually yours, which is actually Saba, etc., and the relationship that that symbol has with the knowledge of the use or the application use of the Ankh or the womb in bringing champions to earth in order to assist humanity with a knowing, as opposed to just from the urge or the sex urge in the cycle of reproduction, which is limited.
I'm going to read this comment from Moorish Alignment and Spirit. Dr. G. Taj, we have to stop giving them credit for being the dark priesthood. They are the light workers, and we are the real dark lords for everything.
Well, the deal of it is everything that came from us, didn't it? Aren't you the mothers and fathers of civilization and the human family? Aren't they a reflection of the lower self? Aren't they the shadow of the lower self? Aren't you responsible? However, the execution of darkness on the earth and the evils on the earth, whether they came from you or not, are being exercised or executed through the hybrids. Deny that. You can't. I'm not accrediting anyone. I'm just telling the politics like it is. Therefore, we must go back to that state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers, mustn't we? And stop playing victim, mustn't we? Which is also implied, and I appreciate that.
Well, when you talk about playing victim, when you think in terms of everybody,
it's this tradition.
The world is a stage, and everybody's playing the part that a role that you pick for each lifetime. And so sometimes you're the antagonist, other times you're the protagonist. You just forget.
Come here to play the part.
Right. And I love what Mother Kai says. She's like, we're here to play. She said, so don't be so serious, because we're all playing. We're acting.
We're all playing parts.
Right.
But
you need to have knowledge of
but I'm adding this. As humanity ascends, is it not the duty of the adeptus to share the ancient knowledge in a more simple form, that we can go through this journey with less suffering, and thus not creating more karma, so that the people don't have to keep going through these cycles?
Absolutely.
Because the lesson, meaning, at what point are we going to start demonstrating that we're learning our lessons? That's my point.
Like I said, I love this definition of ascension. Is simply the shift in consciousness from duality to oneness. It is the quantum leap from the evolutional spiral of duality to that of oneness. And that's what we're talking about. We are one. So we don't recognize our oneness. So we are like cancer in the body that starts to kill other parts of the body. So
the negative spirits among us who have been feeding on us, etc. This goes beyond just the things that we have done. Meaning that, it's sort of like Dr. Naila, where some of the hybriding that the ancient Moabites and Lemurians did in Central America, in the Yucatan as an example, that created what is known as the Roman, etc. I think a lot of times we're looking at the reality of Yaqub, Cushitis, Israel, and those operations, and the 12 women scientists. Because most people keep looking at Yaqub.
Did Yaqub And these 12
Who
women
is the
signed.
father?
No question. Let me ask you this question:
Right.
Did they come from above?
This is the issue. Many of the hybriding experiments that manifest the Roman, very few talk about the intersections of trade and communications with others off world. That's always been with us. And this is where sometimes you hear in the ancient customs and myths about the 8 ball. The 8 ball is really symbolic of.
You talking about like in pool? Okay.
Oh yeah, but that's a game of spears. But the 8 ball come about with that other part of interjection into the hybrid that wasn't necessarily with all of us part of the known experiment.
Explain.
This is why Yakub is also referred to as the father of the devil, because it's that interjection that is manifest that we've been dealing with.
So the
meaning that part of the experiment was not part of the plan. The 8 ball part wasn't. Beyond the 7. I'll leave it at that. You're dealing with that. Don't act like you're not. Those of you who are addicts.
Circle 7.
I'm not excusing that. I'm just talking about it.
When you say beyond the 7, you're talking about
beyond the circle 7.
7. Okay.
Because the 7 is our culture. The 7 is the 7 ruling planets in this particular solar system. But some came from outside and some deals were made. And not only then, but also as of late in 54, that the hybrids who were descendants of the experiments also made some deals that gave them some more powers. That's part of our problem now. Like don't you? For some of you know that, some don't. My particular interest is more in the area of getting our people thinking again and starting to take responsibility, because I already know that the codes of the energies is within us all, and all of you have a piece of it. And stop looking for sacrificial lambs. That's not where your redemption is coming from. It's going to come via, with us, at least on the corporal level, aided by the incorporeal level, via the supra-conscious mind as a tool. Thus, isonomy.
Isonomy.
Isonomy is that symbol that they refer to as Jesus' carpenter's tool. And you'll see the compass
and square.
And the square.
Yeah.
And the compass and the square is symbolized in the very shape of hexalpha or ab-alpha, which is your pyramid up, your pyramid down. And it is also the principle by which we navigate both the land and the sea. Also, from which is adopted the instrument you know as the sextant, which we navigate the waters, as well as the land. And this is where law comes from: land, air, and water. So the law is really divine, but we've gotten off it, haven't we? So when you're talking about the carpenter's tools of justice, and Jesus was a carpenter, it means more than what people think it means.
I thought it was interesting hearing the sister of the woman that channeled and said that, Jesus, one of the character one know as Jesus was
symbolic.
Was it? But she gave him real present as an extra terrestrial, what we would call an extraterrestrial.
I know.
Right.
I kind of know, but in fact, Jesus is more anthropomorphic, and in the sense that has been told to people, it wasn't a Jesus in the sense that they had been told.
I think she's more talking like the
story of the dynamics of the sun, the transits of the sun, a body of cycle of millennia of communications of outer and inner world, etc., and the nature of our organic ascension. However, there it's not exactly a single being, truthfully. But you can express it as multiple beings that have come and gone,
right? Like
or teachers, or what you would
call the emerald tablets, the various ones that have come.
That is also Jesus.
Yeah, they're all of them. Yeah,
they're recycled.
Right.
Not unlike they removed from the Bible, as an example, Fatima and Muhammad. People think it's just in the Quran. That was also in the Bible. That's why they don't show you the older Bibles. But it's not the way that people been presented with it. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
And those of you who are really scholars will begin to find that. And a lot of that information will be revealed to you too. But it's sort of like some of these things that will be coming out are just for your information, because you will find that you're actually far past that. You know how like sometimes Dr. Nali, we will always tell people over the years, a lot of things that we're doing now we'll not be doing later. Right. But it's necessary for us to go through the exercise. But that's only to kind of like grease, as they would say, the machinery of the mind, or to get us rolling, so that when a lot of the ancient biological and mechanical tech or alchemy and technology is reintroduced in society little at a time, that people can handle it responsibly. Truthfully, that's what's up. And the real deal is, now that the earth is going through the Futon belt, the dark priesthood is trying to use it for a negative. You get the whole point? Mm-hmm. But actually, it is also a liberating position. So wherever we are in our evolutionary scale of the mind, of command is mind, we can go negative or positive. We're sort of like at an axis point for the development of humanity. You can either evolve or become fodder.
And it's important to some that we stay distracted.
That we stay positive.
No, I'm talking about on the negative side. Yeah. They want us to be distracted. So
yes. And also that's why they spend so much time trying to devour us, if you get the point. Also, with the nanobots and stuff that they've been doing with the chemtrails and through the food that the people call GMOs, etc. Mm-hmm. Also, for those who really kind of know some of this stuff, you can get some of it off you a little bit. Because remember, when we think about the organs, right, we're usually thinking about, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines, the kidney, the liver, etc. And forget that the biggest organ is the skin. It's another reason why the dark priesthood have been doing chemtrails and putting bacteria and nanobots in it, with technology that they have found out with back engineering, in order to control or change the DNA, in order to limit or constrict the evolutionary operations that's going to take place naturally anyway, but so that they can claim Midgard, claim the earth. For some of you, keep in mind that many of the grasses that are around with you that we feed to animals, alfalfa and some of the other grasses, like dandelion, etc., can be put in your bath water. When you soak in your bath water and use the ion removing substances, like in some laundry detergents, a little bit in your bath water with those grasses of alfalfa and dandelion, and that'll clear some of the those nanobots off. Clean the tub after you take it. Yeah, that's the truth. That'll help some who know, and some who haven't studied. That'll help.
Is there any reversal for anybody who has, for some reason, because it was for their
internally. The nanobots
have taken that the V, or I like what Kevin Berenger calls it. They did the hokey pokey, and so now, is there anything to reverse that? I mean, there are people who most people, before you answer, most people in the chat are conscious enough not to, but they have family, kinfolk, that loved ones, seniors that have been convinced.
There's a duality of operations going on with all of this. Don't look at it from an emotional perspective, but just look at it from a intuitive perspective. You know how the Bible says, if your right arm offend you, cut it off?
Yes.
What it means is don't let people put their spirit on you, and also don't take it too personal, the choices that people make. Because some will meet their demise because they believed in Rome and refused to give up Rome. So they trust Rome still, when enough evidence has been put in place that they long ago, generations ago, should have been able to read Rome and stop agreeing with Rome. So some will suffer because they do. However, unless the being is willing to honestly begin to open up, meaning become open-minded, they'll say, because when they say the statement open-minded, that means starting to trust your gut brain. Or you will receive information because there's always been what you call counter or antidotes to undo some of the things that have been done to you internally. And the divine or the cosmic mother, or we refer to Allah, all universal law, will always bring beings here and give them keys to how to undo some of the things of the dark priesthood. So know that much too. And if you want to know, just want to know honestly and sincerely, it'll come to you anyway. You don't have, if you seek the truth will find you. Put it that way. Yes, yes, yes. There are remedies to undo. However, and that's not with a negative qualification, it's just the truth. You already know when you begin to tell openly some of the truths that they will start shutting down with expurgatorius, so that you will, in other words, they will attack anyone that starts trying to free humanity.
Yeah, I just got received information on something that does that, but it doesn't say that, and I wouldn't publicly even say anything about it because I don't want it to be shut down. But
however, yes, seek and you will find.
Yeah. So.
And those of you on the path, you already know you're on the path anyway. You're in the direction, so it's going to come to you anyway.
I mean, we know, yeah, we know. But I'm saying, like, my son told me that my granddaughter took it, and she'll be 19 next year because to get a job at a hospital. So I was, but
yeah, hospice.
They don't pay attention.
Job at hospice.
Yeah. I mean,
again, this is why it says if right on what you mean, don't take it too personal.
Yeah, it can't.
Because every man, every woman, and child is responsible. Even children are responsible because you're talking to spirit man. You're not talking to the body. You're talking to spirit man. No one gets past this. No one. And know this, with all sincerely, humbly, we're only trying to help. We're not trying to judge. We're not trying to condemn. We're only sharing information. And particularly for those who have been artificially constricted from this knowledge to understand that and comprehend and overstand and understand that it's within, i.e., cranial brain, heart brain, stomach, gut brain, reactivated and connected cognitively, supraliminal, Christ degree. Understand also, the dismantlement is already in progress. There's still a lot of work to do, though. But don't get confident. Don't get arrogant. Don't be selfish.
Someone asked, can we drink dandelion tea? Would that help?
Absolutely.
It won't hurt.
That's one of your. Why do you think they've been killing it?
Calling it a weed.
It's one of your most potent and common, what you would call biological anti-blocking helps. That's why it grows on your lawn, in your yard, by the trees. And that's why they've been doing what they call rounding up anything that's good. That's why they call the chemical killer Roundup.
And it does it too. It not only kills it, it'll kill you.
And it kills the bees too.
And it can kill you.
The bees. So now we got another lesson, birds and bees, don't we? Both metaphysically as well as what? Agricultural. To feed humanity. Got it. If you think these demons ain't dark, you really underestimate them. And if you think that it's not necessary for you to know some of these things, you're still underestimating what's going on at Midgard.
I will also add, that thing that's running across the screen right now, just talking about the scanner, does have some faculties in it that help with the things that we're talking about without me. It will educate you.
Yes. So, we're all conscious of expurgatorius and prohibitorum. We are. And so we're encouraging you to take responsibility for yourselves, for your lives, particularly and proudly and honorably. I respect and give honor to the women that are taking a stand to protect their children. More power to you.
Most definitely. And I was with the sister. She was just on my show, and with Sister Abundance. Now her daughters are, I think, 19 and 25, maybe. Never had vaccinations. Never had problems. Or maybe I should say V's. I mean, no, excuse me. In the eye, they call them immunizations, right? So a lot of things
the hokey pokey.
Yeah, the hokey pokey. A lot of things that we subjected ourselves to is because we were convinced that they were necessary. I'm going to say
on them eugenics operations.
Right, but I'm going to say this, and I'm trying to figure out a way to say it because I don't want to cause any, disruption to the channel. But I'm just going to put this out there. Going forward, if one has taken the, I'm going to say the F shot, the seasonal F shot. You know what that is, and it starts with the F and ends with a U. If you've taken that, I really had a strong download, Grand Sheik, that going forward, they're going to put the other thing in
the
that
demon serum. Called the demon serum.
Well, what I'm saying is for those who were reluctant to take the hokey pokey.
That is one of the marks of the beast.
It's going to be put in the flu shot.
That is one of the marks of the beast.
I don't get flu
Did
shots.
you notice that, like, when people look at the Septuaginta or the Bible, and it says people would not be allowed to buy or sell
without the mark
or the number of the beast? You ever notice that they put a number
on their
to
patent it?
Yes. And it marks people. Did you notice that around the world, where every institution that was prior to these operations, with many people who by the year gave blood to certain organizations, you notice that they're phasing out all people and not accepting anyone who took the demon serum and not accepting their plasma.
Mm.
They are now incubators.
Mm.
Consider that, and consider why. That if they're doing that, and there are many from that same order, that something's wrong and not good.
Bernard Taylor's given a lot of uses for dandelion. Got take the dandelion heads and fry it in tempura batter. Delicious. And he's got, I think, making a jelly and a couple of other things with it. Apparently, dandelion jelly, wine, and medicine, etc. I mean, what they need to do, look out. Normally, if you look right outside of where you domicile, you're going to see whatever so-called weed that is very healthy for you. And it's not a weed, but they're called a weed.
That's just to give it a negative. Because remember, anything that helps, they give a negative. Weed is not negative. But they will always give a negative, because remember, they not only don't want humanity to think for themselves, they also want to disconnect you from nature. And one of their operations, dedicatedly, is to counter nature. Keep that in mind. Don't get mad, get wise.
Hey, Taj and Dr. G, do you guys know or hear about our new currency, Lumi? I don't know.
Let's keep this in mind. You can give us notes and share, but keep in mind, currency is not money. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, let me throw up my silver, y'all.
Credit is not money. Currency is not money. Never confuse the two. And until you get back to the money, you have no honor trade. And all systems that are absent of the gold, silver, and copper, i.e. in harmony with the cosmos, are not going to work anyway. Although they'll be interjected temporarily to pacify people until you get back to truth.
What did Bitcoin do? Go all the way up to what close to 70 and drop down to 30 some babies?
No, they just robbed the people.
Yeah.
Which we were telling before. They just robbed them again.
I made 11 notes per ounce profit on my silver, because all the stuff I bought at 23 is now 35. So, get you some gold and some silver. Some silver you can afford.
Meanwhile, while you're at it, in relationship to their obligations of operation at the Maghrib under constitutional principle, read Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution for the United States, and then see if it says Bitcoin.
What's it say?
See if it says Bitcoin.
You can start your own bank with some silver if you have.
Of course, they don't want you to go there, do
but
they?
You can. Oh, but listen. Oh, I will say this: I updated the flash drive, and I'm sorry for anybody that got their flash drive before the 12th, before the 12th, but it's been updated again, and there is a lot of information. I want to thank Brother Yarad for updating his folder with a lot of valuable information. A lot. So I put about 12 or 15 more documents on there, and there's a lot. And I also put the trust stock on there.
Yeah, I might suggest to you as I'm thinking about it, truthfully, is that because as things unfold, it might just be better so that it doesn't create a problem for people, that you just simply make another flash drive and build on it so that it doesn't conflict.
Well, I've updated.
No, I'm just saying.
Well, the current flash drive now has more documents on it. I just did it because I just got the information.
I mean, that's good, but I'm just saying to you,
I'm probably getting to the end of the 16th because it's got close to going towards 800 documents.
In that way, because we don't want to create obsolescence in the cycle of learning.
So you're like, just like if every time I get new information, I make a new flash drive.
No, not like that. No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, make a new flash drive and all new information. You keep building on that. whereas that one will stay solid, sound, and it will be its legacy.
See right there under that arc. That's the master with everything.
All right. Right.
That's it. I've done that.
And that's so that people won't feel, that they gotta buy the old information over again to get the new information.
Well,
no different than like new like say we're going to do the musings again, so that you don't do the first edition over again, but in addition do a second edition or a new book and then build up of that, and because that takes its own life,
right?
That has its own life.
Well, that one right there has everything.
Yeah, great, great, and
but
and
we just want to, I'm appreciative of the ones who, like I said, who give us information to include. Yes. So what I've been doing is creating folders for whoever it came from, and creating a folder to put that out there.
With their accreditation.
And
that's
then we have one that's actually the House of Real Awakening Minds that I've compiled. Yeah. But I'm appreciative.
And that's appreciative for those of you who are taking the responsibility to help in the great missionary work of helping to uplift fallen humanity. And I'm appreciative of you, for.
Well, it started with just one folder, which was yours.
Yeah, but I'm appreciative of you making the many sacrifices that many don't know that I'm aware of to keep things going for helping humanity. Because I see a lot of the struggles that they don't see. And it doesn't go without notice. I just want you to know that.
Well, thank you. You all don't know how it is when I'm trying to get Grand Sheik up to the office to go on camera, and he's still downstairs either talking to somebody or putting the last minute touches on something, and I'm going, we got 7 minutes before we go live. I need you up here on camera, but it's like I'm directed. But thank you.
Well, that's part of the stressful work you do too. Trying to get Taj, you gotta act right.
6 minutes.
Trying to get Taj, you gotta act right.
Absolutely.
Taj, guy. Come on, Taj,
guy. Someone says, "Do you get paid in gold or silver? Something you can hold? Caution, Bitcoin."
Remember,
nothing
is paid in what you call the commercial trade in truth without gold or silver coin. The compensations that are made in other forms that represents people's gifts or labor is highly appreciated because it's more the love and the intent. And so there you would call it compensation. And we get compensated in many forms, including the fact that people are growing and helping. Even that is compensation.
Yeah, so, yeah. Well, when I put up here about silver with Quicksilver, you get physical silver. So,
remember, this
is
the old. This is
not in your hand.
Ancient and modern rule and honor and contract. Not in your hand, you don't have it.
That's right. You don't have it. Put this up for people asking about the flash drive.
And remember what I told you before, make sure it's very clear. And then you might make a form.
Let me say this. Okay, to those of you who are purchasing the flash drive, this is where we have some things fall through the cracks. I prefer that you purchase it on PayPal, because then you have a record and we have your address, and as soon as I make the envelope to ship it out, you got a tracking number and everything. If you purchase it via Cash App, you must follow the instructions to send me, either if you can't put under 4, if you can't put your whole appellation and address and location on there, Kara, you gotta send me a text, because I don't know who to send it to, and I don't know how many times people. Some of you, it tells you, text me at that number that's in the where I'll give you. Text me and give me a screenshot, and then give me where to send it to and who to send it to. Some of you don't do that, and then you wonder why you don't get your flash drive, because I don't know who $, it's me is. I need to know where it's lives or domiciles and what you want to be called on the envelope. So those who do it via Cash App and don't provide, some actually get the address, put the location in there on the 4 line. They're able to type it, but others just
please don't forget that.
Yeah, that's important, and that's probably why some of you, may not have gotten your flash drive. So I need you to be sure,
Cognizant of that,
and cognizant that you do that, and that's important because where else don't know where to send it, and I want to get this information out to everyone who's requesting it. There's the address again, or the phone number rather.
As quickly and as unobstructedly as possible, knowing already that you have opposition.
All due respect, man, please stop cutting the brother off. It is distraction. We want to hear the truth, everything. Thank you. Well, this is how we operate. Whoever you are, you must be new. With all due respect. Let's continue.
But anyway.
Let me see if there are.
So again, I want to thank you all for sharing with us.
We still got.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I want to thank you all for sharing with us. To keep in mind the trinity of the cranial brain, the heart brain, and the stomach/gut brain is the activation of the supraliminal mind. And keep in mind the word God, coming from Old High German, is really dealing with the capacity or the operative capacity of the supraliminal mind coming from gut. This is why in Old High German, coming down to Old English, the word God has its origin in Old High German, which comes from gut, G-U-T-T. And then that transfers to good, and then they remove one O, and that becomes God. That's the fact of the etymological morphing of the word God coming from gut. The gut activation brain reattaching with the cranial brain and the brain of the heart connected in that trinity is actually your defense mechanism and the capacity in nature for you to make true, balanced, knowing discernment. Thus, it is also an immunity and what you would call defense mechanism. This is also why, in order to even dumb people down, that they attack people through contaminations of food to disengage the gut brain. That's the truth. So please support the House of Reawakening Minds via PayPal, Cash App, or checks and money orders payable to the House of Reawakening Minds and sent to 602 Vanderbilt Avenue, Wilmington, Delaware Republic, zip exec 19801. 801. 802. You better correct that.
Yeah.
Superliminal. But anyway, I want to thank you all for sharing with us. Trust and hopefully, that we've done some good. And if there's any other questions, Dr. Naila, that we might address.
I'm looking. Try not to say anything because they said I talk too much.
Please, you know how we roll.
Well, that's what I said.
Our communication is based on our exchange.
I know, but they want to hear you, and
so they're not aware of the conversations we're having before and while we're doing classes.
Let me see what we're doing. Let's see. Oh, please on the said world fairs. Please, okay, habits for life. Please speak on the, and it has in parentheses said world fairs in the early 18th century Chicago and Buffalo, etc.
Oh, with the takeover of the trade routes, or what you call the old trading triangle?
World fairs, like they had 18.
Oh, that's why it's there. That's why they have it, because that was one of our main. Because remember, metrologically, Chicago is known as Mecca of the West. and that was one of our major trading ports, etc. When we still had control of our trade routes here at the Maghreb. And so, pointedly, even to this day, most of your world trade, etc., although you have one of your largest ports at Long Beach, Khalifa, or California, that Chicago is one of your major trade routes there, Boston, Philadelphia, etc., in the Trenton area. This is why you have so much of the operations of the conversion of the estates of the Moors taking place with so-called George Washington, so-called crossing the Delaware, the Trenton, etc. So those are that ancient trade route. If that's what you're making reference to. And of course, it's important from the Germanic tribes' position of the 1800s for them to have taken over those trade routes and understand. This is why in around from 1854 to 1863, the later part or the second half of the 1800s, when the last vestiges of the powers of the Moors at the Maghreb were manifest, why so much was done, particularly around 1863 to 1868, for them to writing out Moorish history from the school books, etc. So the takeover, or you might call the close to the last vestige of Moorish powers in the West, or what you call Egypt of the West, was successfully executed by the Ivory. And this has much to do, again, why much of that information about the trade route takeover is not taught in history book, and also what the Reconstruction operations of the takeover took place at North America, and then Iberia fell. So people need to know that we fell here actually at America first before Europe fell. Most people think it's in reverse. It isn't. We fell first here, if that's what you're making reference to.
World's fairs were
The
those.
World's fairs displaying Egypt of the West in your face, architecturally and far as the noble points are, because all of the important buildings were always placed at noble points, energy points, which are also known as ley lines. Those are deliberate placements. And it's also what you would call open, kind of like open museums.
That's what the fairs were.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like that. Or like showing in many ways both the conquest, symbols of conquest, and also exposures of back engineered technologies. All of those things included, and then done in a format of and for entertainment, to also display it and also show and veil it at the same time.
Didn't they have like human zoos?
Of course they did.
Looking.
Say it again.
No, I was just looking to see if they're it's a question to ask if we should stay away from people who have had the hokey pokey.
Put it this way. Do a little research, because it is stated by doctors, particularly in Italy. So do some research in Europe and see what some of those doctors are saying, and also why some of the people or some of the governmental operatives pardon me, Italy are now opening up and no longer doing the block the air thing and all the other stuff, because the people who have been taking the devil's serum are incubators and contaminate people who have not. I mean, they're actually being planted with nanobots. And we don't need to tell you, they're starting to tell you themselves, but you won't get that information on this side through the mainstream news. They're not going to go there because they're still executing their genocide operations at the Maghreb. Not that they're not exercising them elsewhere, but remember, most of the demonology has been nurtured here at North America and exported to the rest of the world. That's why the military operations of the UN has its what you call operative enforcement coming from or through the United States Democracy Corporation platform, which these operatives have been pretending to be a country when it's not. It's a private conglomeration of corporate alliances under the Treaty of Verona for world conquest via unum sanctum and the doctrine of discovery. However, their devil serum is being rejected in Europe now. So go do some research about what the politics that's going on in Italy and Portugal, the port of the Gauls. They'll tell you a lot and answer that question on other levels that they won't hear.
Questions: can the elder break down the maritime admiral, I guess I mean admiralty laws?
Well, you already know the operation is that law is land, air, and water. And the deal of it is when you're talking about land jurisdiction, you're talking about what is known as the common law and the principles of the ancient ones that's adopted for jurisdictional and jurisprudence operations actually all over the planet in general with most nations. And in order for the Germanic tribes to exercise their piracy, they bring admiralty law or the law of the seas on the land to also imply SEA as well as SEE, claims made by the Pope under the straw. And so the admiralty jurisdiction, which all of the members of the bar are trained in, is not so much bad in its own right, but is a misrepresentation when they come on the land to claim the estates of people. And so when people are dealing in the courts jurisdictions of the chancery, there's an assumption that they're executing for protections of their rights of beings and property, that their rights and liberties are being secured when in fact it is not true. So it's not to condemn admiralty and maritime law, is to make people aware of the fact that it has been artificially and in violation of treaties and constitution brought upon the land in order to steal people's estates, etc. And so the distinctions of the different jurisdictions must be known to the people so that you can make discernment in relationship to any controversies between Roman Curia members who are known as the US, etc., distinguished from true nation states and Aboriginal indigenous people who have been constantly robbed by them through the Pharisees and Sadducees of the British accredited registry known as the Bar Association, which has been going on. So this is again why people who kind of understand jurisdiction and law will also teach methodologies by which people will do writs or what you call co-warrantos, etc., and change the venues of the corporate state courts back into the common law venues and deal with diversity of nationality in order to enforce the common law or constitutional law, which secures the rights of persons and property in all countries, to which the United States might be a party. So you're making what you call jurisdictional distinctions. And also rejecting by averment whenever they're pulling you artificially into an admiralty jurisdiction while not claiming that is so.
Here again.
And keep in mind, this is why, for those of you in questions like that, the admiralty, maritime jurisdiction versus land jurisdiction, this is why, if you really comprehend what's going on, that all persons operating in the corporate state governments and the local municipalities are in fact committing treason against the people and have been doing so for quite some time, knowingly. So don't think it's just a matter of misunderstanding, 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 miscomprehension on the part of politicians. It has not been, and it is not. You have organized traders who have been operating knowingly since 1861, and particularly affirmed with the Organic Act of Congress, February 2nd, 1871, who have been operatively committing and maintaining and constructing legislation, color of law, color of office, color of authority operations with colored legislation against the people, which is why many of our people are broke economically now, and why they muddy the water when discussions of the distinction between dogmatic and theft-oriented credits and currencies are presented in argument and trade distinguished from money, i.e. Yakam coin. Therefore, a bit of abstract can never be a coin. They're already telling you that they're lying. And as of a day or two ago, you've been robbed again via that platform. Doesn't mean that it hasn't been used. It doesn't mean that it's not being introduced in a transitory form. It is. However, know that it's not money.
Get towards the end. I'm still trying. Oh, get that channel up.
Say again?
Trying to get that up to the 1,000.
Oh yes. Yes. When you subscribe to Dr. G's new YouTube channel, which is Dr. G's official.
No, Dr. G is official.
Yeah, Dr. G is official. Well, Dr. G's, I see. Dr. G is official. YouTube requires 1,000 subscribers in order for the channel to go live. So make sure that you just subscribe for Dr. G's new YouTube channel. Dr. G is official. And so the YouTube requires 1,000 subscribers minimally in order for the channel to go live. So click the link posted in the chat. So the link will be posted in the chat.
Or just do a search.
Or do a search and you'll find the link. Because again, one of the things that she's trying to do is so that we can be more open with you in a lot of subject matter that concerns helping us all help each other. And because they have not closed down expurgatorius and prohibitorum, it just comes in the form of demonetization or closing people's channels, censorship. That's still expurgatorius and prohibitorum. And so this new channel that she's setting up is to open up a little broader.
For metaphysical
for everything.
All this stuff, yeah.
Yes.
More of a, it's going to do.
And so that some things can be discussed more openly without you being locked out.
Well, they still got the same block, but we're gonna leave this stuff over here, and this channel is not going away.
Yes.
So just let them know this channel is not going away. We appreciate each and every one.
And all of you who have been supportive of the House of Reawakening Minds, we can't get to all of you, but you're all appreciated. And one time I would like to also, while we're going through this, for you to get the appellations of people who've been helping, so that we can at least mention their noms in, the first one anyway, to credit you, to let you know that we appreciate your aids and your support, etc. That is not gone unnoticed.
And the question was, when were we going to do have live classes? And I did respond early on to one individual's question, but just to put it out there, I would think hopefully by the summer we will go to make one live session, and we'll do our
physical house.
One at the physical house. It won't be twice a month, but we'll try to get one in. But we will announce that.
Yes.
We will announce that, because I know a lot of you who would
as certain aspects of the bio King Alfred Rex 84 war operations is winding down a little bit, which will be probably by astrological numerical calculation around Augustus, which is part of the planned term, that much of the work of the indictments will be so well on their way that the dark priesthood will be detoothed, kind of like, and that some of the expurgatorious and prohibitorum operations will be lifted off of humanity. And so some things will be able to be spoken of according to the Amendment 1 for the Constitution under the Republic will be exercised. And at that point, we will notify you.
Got like 3 minutes, but we appreciate everyone for your comments and your contributions, and we thank you for your camaraderie in the chat. Those of you who are respectful of the chat and respectful of each other, makes it go smooth. That's what we appreciate. We totally appreciate that. And for those of you, couple of you who want to assist, if you can email me at House of Reawakening Minds at gmail.com, you can find that. I think we have it listed somewhere. We can talk about it, because moderators probably would help us tremendously, because my eyes don't see everything.
And keep in mind, one of the keys to now, with the activation of the supraliminal mind, one of the keys is love ye one another. Keep that in mind. In spite of the opposition that's sure to be there. That's a tool.
So anyone? Okay. Well, okay. She said the link he thinks they may be shadow blocking. I don't know. I know when
they always do.
If you go to YouTube and you type in Dr. G is official, it'll come up with Darius is official, and then do you mean Darius, and then underneath, no, you mean Dr. T. If you click on that, and it takes you there. Because I think there's about 500 subscribers, and I appreciate each and every one of you who has done that. Appreciate it to the utmost. I'm ready to get this channel kicking and operative and doing what we need to do. But again, we thank you. I'll find a way to make it easier to locate. Last Geopolitical Bey is on there. Sheik for the knowledge and peace. Yeah, they be hating any prize for nationals. All right. As I said, there will be no class tomorrow, but we didn't want to completely cancel it, and so we were grateful to be able to do it tonight. And we will see you. I will see you on Tuesday. For those of you,
we had to make adjustments for work schedules.
Right. For those of you who tune in to Office Hours with Dr. G, that will be Tuesday night at 8 p.m. right here on the same channel. Hopefully you will log in. It's going to be I think it's going to be a very informative interview for anybody who needs healing and emotional healing. This is going to be something I think that you don't want to miss. And we're going to have a wonderful person on who has used healing for themselves and is now able to provide that same kind of assistance to others. So want to tune into that on Tuesday. And then will you be coming back the following week or no?
Yes.
It will be?
I think, yeah. The first and the third.
Okay. So, and then Grand Sheik will be back. If it's the first, I don't think it's the first. I don't think
third.
There is no Friday.
I know. But it will still simply be next month.
Or whenever.
Yes.
He'll be back
technically the first.
Okay. He'll be back the first Friday of
next moon,
as he says. And we thank you and we appreciate you for tuning in once again. And we thank you for your support. And
your love.
And your love.
And your patience. And your tolerance.
Yes, all that. All that we appreciate.
And your capacity to have patience with the
deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a life I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.